Hello, I'm Peg Breen, president of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. We were thrilled to have our 2021 Living Landmarks Gala in person again on November 3rd. Last year's gala was virtual, thanks to COVID, but we were also pleased that so many people watched it. So we wanted to share this year's honorees with those of you who couldn't join us at the Plaza Ballroom. We'll meet them in just a moment after we see how the Landmarks Conservancy is helping the city's recovery. The Landmarks Conservancy has preserved and protected New York for almost 50 years. We helped New York recover in past emergencies, and we're doing our part to help the city's recovery now. Our grants and technical assistance help buildings in Lower Manhattan damaged on 9/11. We saved the survivor staircase at Ground Zero. It's now featured in the 9/11 Museum. After recent hurricanes and earlier superstorms, our emergency grants help nonprofits repair damage and reopen. We've loaned and granted almost $59 million through the years, contributing to total restoration projects of more than $880 million. We've invested nearly $5 million just since the city shut down in March a year ago. That's triggered a total $54 million worth of projects and created local jobs. We're helping nonprofits pay for emergency repairs. We're helping religious institutions in underserved communities with everything from conditions assessments to repairing roofs. Our loans are helping homeowners throughout the boroughs repair their buildings' exteriors. Our work on this Harlem brownstone is a good example of our hands-on help. Our loan is restoring the entire facade, from the cornice to new windows. We're bringing back historic details. Our expert staff is helping to manage the work.
The guidance that we got in terms of how all of this would be addressed was not something that we would have been able to bring to this project ourselves. And as we all know, this has been a really extraordinary time in terms of the pandemic, and the Conservancy has just been incredibly helpful in helping us navigate that.
The couple initially thought about just repairing the cornice, but they decided they owed a restored building to themselves and the neighborhood.
We just wanted to really fully restore it to its original state because we love New York City, and to be able to give something back to the place that we call home.
Our Sacred Sites grants have helped more than 836 religious institutions of all denominations. We're working with Mother AME Zion Church in Harlem on a major roof replacement.
I am theologically and seminary trained. I know nothing about building repair, but thankfully the Conservancy knows the people, put us in contact with the people to do what needed to be done here, and we could not have done that alone.
The church is the oldest African American church in the city. A small museum details its history. It's been a cultural as well as a religious center for the Harlem community. Duke Ellington performed here.
It was built almost as a multi-purpose auditorium. The horseshoe-style seating was literally designed to give Black people who were not able to attend a show at Carnegie Hall or to attend the Metropolitan Opera, or even in those days be a patron in the Apollo Theater. It gave Black people in New York City a concert hall of our own.
Dr. Bird is proud of the church's landmark status. He thinks more Harlem institutions deserve this recognition.
Thankfully, the Conservancy has been very interested to identify particularly vulnerable and historic landmarks in Harlem, with the hope that the next generation will be able to enjoy these very important jewels of our community.
Landmarks are important to communities throughout the city. Historic districts are drawing cards for tech companies, women and minority-owned businesses. They're attracting residents and tourists. As New York recovers, these historic areas will be economic drivers again. During these stressful times, the city's landmarks anchored us, reminding us that New York has come through difficult times before. We're proud to be the New York Landmarks Conservancy, and we'll continue to preserve the city we love. And now to our honorees, dedicated New Yorkers who give back so much to the city. We're proud to present our 2021 Living Landmarks.
It's a city that offers everything, and you just have to choose what is best for you.
Marina Kellen French chose philanthropy. She inherited her parents' great devotion to the arts. She endowed the director's position at the Frick in their name, and the director's position at the Metropolitan Museum in her own. She served on numerous cultural boards.
I definitely believe art is for everyone, art is for the public.
French also shares her parents' belief in exposing children to the arts.
And you see all these children coming in. I mean, they glow when they see something new and they're out to learn.
French is also a longtime board member at the Hospital for Special Surgery.
If you don't have health, then you don't have anything. The debilitating orthopedic problems that people have are major, and HSS does a brilliant job in taking care of that.
French got to explore New York when Mayor Koch named her to the Commission for Cultural Affairs, tasked with showing important visitors around.
There wasn't a day or a night that I didn't go out to something absolutely extraordinary, whether it was in Queens or in Brooklyn or Manhattan, Staten Island. I got to know my city.
French believes New York always comes through tough times and will continue to evolve.
It will be a different city, but the world will be different, right?
The best thing about New York is the diversity of the arts and cultural offerings. That's what makes New York, I think, the most exciting city in the world.
Jonelle Procope helps to keep New York exciting through her stewardship of the legendary Apollo Theater in Harlem.
The interesting thing about this architecture is it feels like it's in the round, and so from pretty much every seat in the theater, you can see the stage, and it creates a very intimate experience for the audience as well as the performer.
And what performers they've been, from Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, and Count Basie, to Jennifer Hudson and other greats of today. The Apollo has always been a place of opportunity for performers. Procope believes in sharing that opportunity with her Harlem neighbors.
I think cultural organizations have a responsibility to the communities in which they reside. The Apollo has always been very much a part of its community.
That involvement normally includes presenting emerging artists and hosting thousands of New York City students. During COVID, the Apollo also helped keep artists employed.
We commissioned to keep artists working, and we'll be rolling out some of the work that has been worked on over the past year. So I think it's going to be an exciting year, and we'll continue to push the envelope with new programming, new artists, and some of the more seasoned artists who want to explore different projects.
The Apollo also plans to manage 2 smaller theaters being built in an adjacent project. They will also program them. During her 18-year tenure, Procope has also overseen several phases of restoration to the 107-year-old Landmark Theater.
I think it's really important to preserve buildings, and it was really important to us to preserve the Apollo. Our architecture and our building is a linkage to our past. It's something to connect to.
Procope feels that connection on walks through the Harlem neighborhoods.
In Harlem, when I look at the buildings, the brownstones, the beautiful boulevards, it reminds me of the rich history of Harlem. And I'm just proud to be able to maintain that history and to contribute to it through our work at the Apollo.
After I bought the first building and I got to collect the rent of these walk-up tenants, I was happy that I kept buying buildings, and that's where I am today.
Where Marty Olshan is today is a long way from Brooklyn and his early career as an accountant. Today, Olshan Properties manages commercial buildings in 11 states with more than 1,000 employees. One of his proudest accomplishments was converting the former B. Altman building on Fifth Avenue into a nonprofit education and research facility that includes the graduate center of his alma mater.
And saw the beauty in the B. Altman buildings because of its size, the quality of the construction, and the opportunities that existed for educational groups.
Olshan took great care restoring the B. Altman building. He believes in both preservation and development.
Part of what makes the city so exciting is the architecture that exists and the advancement of the development in the city.
Another source of pride has been his investment in Parkchester, a vast middle-income housing complex in the Bronx.
Parkchester was very interesting. People who wanted to live there lived there because they thought they could afford it. And it was beautiful buildings, and we upgraded it.
In addition to refurbishing the many buildings, Olshan felt it was important to provide parks as well.
It's important that the city be attractive to people living in it. And for that to happen, it's got to be more than just a brick and mortar.
Olshan has been involved in New York for a long time. How does he think it's doing?
I think it's improving all the time.
I'm an optimist to begin with. Am I making any kind of a difference? Just a little bit. I mean, that's all I ask.
Patricia Klingenstein is making a difference. A lifelong reader, her philanthropy is devoted to literacy through the Klingenstein Family Foundation and her devotion to the New York Historical Society and New York Public Library. While she loves the iconic 42nd Street building, Klingenstein is devoted to the branch libraries.
The fact that these little libraries are community centers as well as lending libraries, I think is so important because they serve the old, the young, the disadvantaged, the handicapped, and to me that's the most important thing.
Klingenstein is the longest-serving trustee at the New York Historical Society. She endowed its library and recently underwrote a new storage facility for the collection.
History matters. We like to think of ourselves as a national historical society seen through the prism of New York.
She has her own priorities, but Klingenstein trusts the institutions she supports.
I have the philosophy that the people that are running a good institution know more about how to spend their money than I do. I gave it to them with no holds barred.
Klingenstein notes that both organizations she's devoted to are in landmark buildings, another important part of the city's history.
One of the worst things that ever happened was tearing down Penn Station. Thank goodness for Jackie Kennedy and saving Grand Central, because those things are so important. There are legacies. Again, I can't imagine the city without them.
I think what makes a good New Yorker, first of all, is a tolerant attitude to differences, but also a sort of insatiable desire to strive, to do what no one thought could be done.
David Jones is a good New Yorker. He's led the venerable Community Service Society since 1986, working to improve the lives of low-income New Yorkers. He's also served on an impressive number of government and nonprofit boards and commissions.
Public service was sort of, from the time I was little, was sort of engaged at our kitchen table. And the notion of not doing that never emerged.
Jones advised Mayor Koch on race relations and immigration reform, still issues today. Has there been improvement?
I think in some ways they have. Obviously, the emergence of the prospective mayor, Adams, is a change, capstone to what Dave Dinkins and the rest and what Edward was working on. I think there's still gaping issues that sort of get me up in the morning and the work we have to do.
Jones grew up in Brownstone, Brooklyn. His father co-founded the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Center with Robert Kennedy. Jones believes it's important to save these neighborhoods and buildings.
These were integral parts of the fabric of these communities. Those brownstones, things that really kept the neighborhood together and didn't just make it uniform or tear them down, were really part of my childhood.
Jones has seen New York emerge from tough times before. he's confident about its future.
The fact of New York coming back again is almost a no-brainer. The wish to have interaction face-to-face is just extraordinary. I've had to break lunches short after they've gone over 2 hours. So the notion that everyone's going to be working remotely and therefore the city will sort of wither and die, I don't see it happening.
The best thing about New York is the cultural riches of this city. The theaters, the museums, the restaurants. You walk through the streets and you can feel the energy coming up to your shoes.
Gilmore has energy to spare. Through a more than 40-year career at the Hearst Corporation, he's helped keep New York a corporate and media center and change the skyline to boot.
We wanted a building that we would be able to look at 75 years from now and say that it transcended the era in which it was built. And that to us is very important.
Maurer helped deliver Hearst's impressive headquarters. He led a worldwide search that selected Lord Norman Foster as the architect. Foster's bold design brought architectural acclaim. Its energy efficiency earned the city's first gold LEED certificate. It's since added LEED Platinum.
I don't know of a developer in New York today who is building a building that with ignoring the environmental aspects of it. And I think that's probably where we laid the biggest glove on the development business.
For all his involvement with cutting-edge architecture, Maurer believes in preserving the best of our older buildings.
If you don't know your past, how are you going to make a future?
Maurer comes from a family of artists and has had a lifelong interest in drawing. His travel-inspired watercolors are displayed at the Hearst Gallery.
Well, business and culture are the heart and the pulse of really any great city, and it's the motive force that keeps great cities great. A life without art, for me, is a barren place to live.
Hearst decided to build their tower within days of 9/11. The company had no doubt the city would recover then. Maurer is still confident today.
Well, repeat after me. Never sell New York short. New York will come back. Vital, alive cities are adaptable.
We hope you enjoyed meeting our honorees. We love to highlight people who preserve the city in their own special ways. The New York Landmarks Conservancy will continue to preserve the buildings and neighborhoods that are the heart and soul of the city we love.